Hello, everyone, and welcome to another project. This is Unicorn Overlord, developed by Atlas. Now, honestly, it's been a while for me since I've played this game, and if you don't know what this type of game this is a kind of RTS mixed with an RPG. And if you don't know the term RTS, it's real-time strategy. But it's got RPG mechanics to it. It's actually not a bad combo, if I'm being honest. Now, why am I doing this? Honestly, I'm struggling on my current side project, which is Streets of Cornea. Oh my. Anyway, I'm struggling a little bit with Class of Heroes, mainly because to me there's not enough information out there to help me move along. Ooh. Joseph talking to his queen. And that is actually quite an attractive queen. Wow, I'm not going to say anything about them. And yes, I am doing this with the Japanese dialogue with English text because, let's face it, most likely you're going to see what's on the screen and probably hear the Japanese dialogue being different. Because this came out a few years ago during what is still going on, which is the localization issue that we've all been facing as gamers. Valmore. And her name is Elenia. Well, remember Valmore for a little bit later. What did she do? It's not actually that she did anything. Alan, huh?
Joseph,
I'm gonna guess that Alan is her son. Stands to reason. The Ring of the Unicorn. Well, as the title suggests, Unicorn Overlord. This is kind of one of the main objectives of the game is keeping this ring safe. Have need of the power it bears. Well. Yep. It's always right on cue. There are... You're going to want to remember some of these body types, because this game does use a number of them for a number of units. It's not necessarily a bad thing, because they do vary it up, but if you have an issue with reused assets, you're probably not going to like this game. Me personally, I love this game. But then again, I've been a fan of RPG since I was young. I say that as if it was some far time away. It's not. I'm in like my late 30s. but it feels that way. There's always something amiss. Also, you can tell he's the main character because he's different from everyone else. You pray that it's enough? No, I think so. Also, this woman, I'm now noticing, she has two shields. I'm going to assume buckler style on both of her arms. I've never noticed that. What is the point of that? Well, in a sense, she is helping her for what he's about to do. The queen gave him a task and he needs to see it through. Valmore. This is the motherfucker. He's got quite the army. But so do we. Hodrick. Well, alright. Unit movement. We can move the cursor with the left stick to select allies and command them to move. It's not just the left stick, you have to press the X button too, but that should be obvious in this. You have to do something. So, you're gonna select, we're gonna select move, and think of it this way, think of this as like a different version of what Fire Emblem that is under the Nintendo IP set does. But it's a little bit different. It's not under a grid, it's freeform. Now, since we've selected Valmore as our target, we're gonna make movement. Obviously, this also means that everyone and their mother is going to try and intercept us. But take a look at everyone's level. You're gonna want to remember this. Because much like every other JRPG, you got a level system. And just like Fire Emblem, you do have a level, and like Fire Emblem, you also have a level system. Now, what's different, what sets this apart from games like from other RTSs and RPGs, like, say, Fire Emblem, again, I'm going to be making this comparison a lot. You notice the red and blue, what almost looks like dots or diamonds? Those are for using moves. In fact, I'm going to go over my details. Now, if I say go over Renault, who is a Great Knight class, he's got 4 actions. He's got the pile thrust. If he defeats a target, he gains 1 more AP, which is the action points, which means he'll be able to use another technique like the assaulting lance, which will gain him another one. It'll keep going for a little bit until you either run out of AP or until all targets are defeated, if I remember right. Assaulting lance also has a 100% crit rate, meaning it's guaranteed no matter what. Then we have these abilities which are more passive in nature, such as Quick Guard, which activates before being hit. Well, I guess you could say... I'm not exactly being very... I just got off work, so my actual job, so I'm not doing a very good job of keeping my head on straight. So you'll have to forgive me. What I mean is this particular AP, while it could be recoverable depending on the technique, depending on the action, it's not something that hurts enemies unless it specifically states otherwise. These are more defensive in nature, such as Cavalier Call, which grants cavalry allies in the user's row 20% attack power. You don't really, in this case, you don't really have it because you have other units in the front row instead of cavalry units, which honestly I'm not a fan of, but then again, I can't really say much. Also, yeah, the fact that that Elenia, who is what's called a Valkyria, had 2 shields on was indicative to her model. They're capable of using more than one defensive type of item. Hodrick is a Legionnaire. If you want to compare Legionnaires to a unit in Fire Emblem, it would be the Knights, the heavy armors. They're highly defensive, but severely lack magic defense, as is the case with Hodrick. If you take a look at his magic defense stat, it is at 2. But his guard rate is a 100%. Mostly due to the fact that his base guard set for the Great Shield is 35%. His guard efficiency raises it by another 50, so that's an 85%. Then you have the Cloth Gauntlets, which increase guard rate by an additional 30%. So basically that guard rate should be over 100%. But because of the fact that it's limited, you can guess. Which is funny because I believe crit rate is also limited to that, but crit damage in other games, you can go up to, I believe, like 3.5 times damage, I want to say. Anyway, I'm getting off topic here. Then we have back units, such as a Gailey here, who is a sergeant. Now, he's unique in that he's got a higher physical attack stat and a lot of accuracy. Accuracy is going to be something you're going to want to remember, because more often than not, if you have a low accuracy, you're probably going to be missing a lot. And then we have Alcina. You're going to want to remember her for later because she's actually, I believe, going to be integral to the plot overall. In fact, all of these units are going to be integral to the story in one way or shape or form outside of Elenia. We're about to find out here very soon why. Now, when it comes to the attacking and defending, whenever 2 units meet up, it's all automatic, just like in Fire Emblem. But more often than not, units will probably take more than 1 or 2 turns. But like I said, this is based on their AP, both their red and their blue. And it is going by a little bit fast, but Elenia starts it off using one of her passives, which buffs her team. Hodrick's own passive and Gailey's passives also do some buffing, but Hodrick's passive buffs defensive capabilities, the heavy cover. It guarantees that they only do 1 damage due to his high defense stat. Alcina is I believe a witch is their class type. You're gonna find a lot of magic type users, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. But you see these numbers? That's how many times a unit can get attacked and still do the maximum amount of damage that they can do. If you, as well as even moving, once that hits 0, you're not going to be able to move, and if you get attacked, you're not going to do a whole lot of damage. In fact, more often than not, your enemy is going to go before you. But we'll worry about having to deal with that later. All thrones, huh? World domination? Classic. Just like all good JRPGs, the bad guy always wants to conquer the world. Please. In that regard, villains are more like Final Fantasy villains. You're either trying to conquer the world or trying to destroy it utterly. Looking at you, Kefka and Sephiroth. Delusions, huh? Delusions of grandeur? Possibly. Unity. Oh, okay, in this regard, he's not wrong, but at the same time, you're not exactly on the best terms with any nation. Ah, he's a conqueror. We all know how that's gonna end. We get into this cutscene because our only objective was to actually get to Valmore, and then we get to this, which tells, but that's not enough for the story, is it? You probably all want to know what happened. Well, remember, various members of her entire team were in that one instance of battle, with the exception for Joseph. And very clearly, Elenia lost. Remember that short warlock for later. And yes, he's a fucking warlock. Or rather, I would call him a necromancer. You are not gonna like this guy. I already don't like him. Then again, I don't like either one of these guys. Old Knights Captain, huh? Probably talking about Joseph. The Eastern Gate, before it was barred. Why the Eastern Gate? That should have been the West. Well, yes. Yes, you did underestimate her. Just like how you're gonna be underestimating a lot of people. Hallowed Chronicle. Grand Corin.
これに対してコルニアの女王イレニアは王子アレインを逃がすため我が身を盾としわずかに残った手勢と共に迎え撃つもあえなく全滅。
As valorous as it was damned. Torn Isle of Palivia in the Holy Kingdom of Albion. Interesting.
一方、バルモア将軍は皇帝ガレリウスを名乗り、フェブリス大陸全土への侵攻を開始。
Valmor donned a second name, Galerius. And one by one, the other nations fell. In essence, he really did kind of like conquer the world, didn't he? Well, in a sense.
ガレリウス皇帝は神聖ゼノイラ帝国によるフェブリス大陸統一を宣言した。
Few did. And those few still stand today. Guaranteed. Yep. As if that's a spoiler. Come on. Bird of hopes of liberation. That's all most people can really do, really. Night after unceasing night. This is also going over the course of a few years. Because remember, the Alan that we saw is a young boy. However, yeah, over the course of 10 years. Which makes you wonder, how old was Alan when this first occurred? The Unicorn Ring. I believe this is our prologue. Scarlet, huh? Going back where? Well, Unicorn Overlord. Presented by Atlas. Sound production by Basis Cape. I mean, Basis Cape did it good. Developed by Vanillaware, yes. Well, okay, the developers are Vanillaware and Atlas is the publisher. Okay, that's my fault entirely. Lex. And over on the left, we have Alan. Alan still lives. He now dons a suit of armor along with a cape. And he picks up the sword and shield style. Damn, Lex, buddy. You're gonna have to do a lot better than that. Especially if you're gonna be in my party in the long run. I actually like using Lex long term because of his class. But I will state, he's gonna need a little bit of work in order to make him good. So you're gonna want to pair him up with someone that is either capable of healing him or is capable of supporting him with either range attacks or buffs. Or if you want to go with a different strategy, have a tank with him. But Lex is actually a very decent unit, and he is worthy of staying on. Whether or not he's a leader character is up for debate, and I'll get into that later. Probably in the next few episodes. レックスだってかなりの腕前さ。ジョセフにも負けないようお互い訓練を積んできたおかげだな。 train for the rest of their lives and still not manage to beat Joseph. Well, I would hope not. The guy was the captain of the Knights like 10 years prior. But it's that classic case of the old grizzled veteran is very, very strong. Yeah, you know the trope.
Joseph 様か。そういや本土で解放軍を準備してるんだろう。
Back on the mainland, huh? Liberation Army?
ついにゼノイラ軍と戦うことになるんだな。あ
あ、そうだ。コルニア本土ではゼノイラに苦しめられた民が助けを待っている。王位継承者として俺が彼らを救わなければ。
That's fair enough.
そして亡き母のためにも。
Technically, I have not beaten this game just yet, but I am getting very, very close. I am on the last nation before I go into the final battle. And yet, I've still not heard hide nor hair about Alan's mother. And I'm still under the feeling that she is alive.
けど世界を支配するゼノイラ軍に勝てるのかな。
Slowly, methodically. That's how you deal with this. If anyone has played any Fire Emblem game and they've like the Tellius arc, Path of Radiance, and Radiant Dawn, you already know how the protagonists of that game handled a liberation.
平和を取り戻すため戦う。その俺たちに天は味方するはずだ。
The heavens, huh?
そうだな。つい弱気になっちまった。
Yeah, you've got to work on that confidence there,
ア
Lex.
レインも気負いすぎるなよ。俺も一緒に戦うからさ。
And Alan's got a good friend in this guy.
ありがとう。本当に頼りにしている。
やけに素直だな。こっちが照れちまう。訓練はもういいや。昼になる前に帰ろうぜ。
Yeah, you can't beat beat a great evil without food. You gotta be able to keep your stomach full.
もうそんな時間か。
What's up?
どうした？
あの船、ま
A
さか。
ship. With ominous music. That can only mean one thing.
あの旗の紋章、ゼノイラ軍じゃないか。
ついにこの島にもやってきたのか。早く皆に伝えよう。
わかった。俺は町に行く。アレインは聖堂へ。
Good job, Lex. Good idea. Polivia
ま
Harbor.
ずは港を封鎖しろ。誰も島から逃すな。それ。
Sword users, axe wielders. Oh,
総員、下船完了しました。
hang on, I remember you. Well, we should remember him.
先遣隊を聖堂に向かわせる。
Hodrick, you traitor!
目標を生け捕りにするのだ。
Apprehend the target alive.
はっ。
Are they going after Alan? Maybe. But I doubt that. The cathedral.
天を滑る我らが神とその御使いたる天使様、我々に今日を生きるだけのささやかな糧をお恵みください。我々の行く先に暗闇を置かれる時もせめて迷わぬだけの灯火をお与えください。この聖なる大地の守り手一角の聖獣と母なる御子の名において。
Very devout. So something tells me she's a healer. Oh, I already know she's a healer. As if that's a spoiler.
いつも言っているでしょ。教会に入るときは静かに。誰なの？
どうやら俺たちが一番乗りみてえだな。
痛めつけるのはいいが殺すなよ。
ここは神聖なる神の家。父兄は許されませんよ。
なら神に祈ってな。
Of course she's fast. She's not encumbered like you guys with heavy armor. Not bad, Alan.
スカーレット。
A little shaken, and yet you were able to beat back someone with a single hit.
一体何が起きているの？
ゼノイラ軍の旗を掲げた船が来ている。
あなたが王子であることがゼノイラ軍に伝わったのかしら？
それはわからないが、敵を放っておくわけにはいかない。
そうね。これ以上聖堂で暴れられたら困るわ。
You own that cathedral? I thought it was a house of God. Oh.
ご無事でしたか。
And who's the spear user behind you, Joseph? Also, yes, Joseph did turn, like, really old. I think he was already old to begin with. If I remember, I'm gonna estimate he was probably in his, like, 40s or 50s already. But yeah, like I said, he's the trope of the grizzled old war veteran. The woman behind him
レックスはどこに？
is named Chloe.
先に町へ向かった。合流して港へ急ごう。
アレイン殿下、その前にこれを。
これは。
Ah, the ring that its mother entrusted to Joseph.
殿下に渡すようイレニア様から預かっていた一角獣の指輪です。成人された折にお渡しするつもりでしたが。
Till signs of age played more deeply, as in, what? He was gonna be older? What? I imagine this guy's already like 18. He's technically an adult already.
きっと殿下のことを守ってくださるでしょう。
So I don't think it would have been a wise idea to wait any longer.
母上が。ありがとう、ジョセフ。
では急ぎましょう。
Now, we get into the other tutorial for battle. Battle stages are the fields of combat where allied and enemy units wage war in real time. Each battle stage has victory conditions that must be fulfilled in order to complete it, such as defeating the enemy commander. We'll get into the victory and defeat conditions a little bit later. For now, it's gonna teach you how to deploy units, which is being at a base. It doesn't necessarily have to be a base or a command post. It's just one of the more common areas where you're gonna find that to occur. And we have Alan's unit. This is the one we start off with. And automatically we have Alan himself, and we have Scarlet. In this case, Scarlet is your healer and will heal Alan's wounds and even herself. Deploying a unit consumes 1 valor point from the gauge displayed in the upper left of the screen. In order to be able to deploy units, you need to have that valor gauge. You need to have the valor points up at least 1 point. You get a maximum of 10, and they're not just used for deploying units. They're used in other ways too. We'll get into that later. Valor points can be replenished by defeating enemies, liberating towns and fortresses, and more. I believe even just going into a battle that you didn't outright kill everyone in allows you to start slowly getting valor points. Also, when it comes to deploying, you probably noticed it. There is a ring around the command post. The same is going to be true for the town here, which would be an outpost.
さて
And that is the area in which you can actively deploy a unit. Now we get into the battle menu. They could have done this in the beginning of the game, because otherwise people would get... No, because otherwise you're going to get confused. Now, when an allied unit encounters an enemy unit, the battle menu will appear at the bottom of the screen. Use it to organize your forces and view enemy details before battle. Select battle once you've finished preparing to enter the fray. Now, it says that both units are in equal power. And the only reason I'm going to say that we're going to win this is because Alan is, for a main protagonist, actually very strong. He's also being backed up by a healer, whereas the enemy side is both axe wielders. I'm going to say this right now. The units are... Axe wielders are not very accurate. In fact, well, they're a bit more accurate than I thought, but they don't have a whole lot of physical defense. They're more offensive in nature. And they both have the same equipment. This also goes into their overall power, I'm going to say, which is that number 6 down at the bottom. Now, when it comes to Alan, he's a bit more physically defensive in nature, is a bit more accurate, has higher evasion, and higher attack stats. Scarlet is more magic in nature, with a much higher evasion than Alan. And like I said, she's also a healer. And you'll notice that her actions have conditions to them, whereas Alan's does not. We'll get into that a little bit later when it comes to skills. In fact, as you level up, you'll notice how certain levels have certain skills that you can learn. Remember that, because that's how you're going to learn a lot of different actions, and you can mix and match certain things. But for now, I'm just going to go right into the battle, and you'll see why it is. Battles play out automatically according to various predetermined rules. Initiative determines their turn order. So if you have a high turn initiative, which is essentially like having a high speed stat, you're going to be more likely to go first. In the case of Alan, he's got a higher initiative than everyone else, so he's going to start things off. And as you notice, he also, when he does his action, he not only damages the enemy, he heals himself. And Alan's passive skill triggers. And the blue diamond, I'm going to call it, is your passive points, whereas the red one was your action points. Like I said, it's all active and passive. And you can regain with various conditions, depending on the technique that's being used. And Scarlet's skill, passive skill, Quick Heal, triggers because of her not only the condition that was placed on her by default, it probably would have triggered anyway, because Alan was damaged in the first place. The battle will end when all combatants have run out of AP or when all combatants on one side have been defeated. Remember how I've been saying you can regain AP depending on the technique used or even a passive skill used? This is why. That's why I mentioned it, because it has to run out of AP at some point or another. You can also view the battle log by pressing square, but it's not really necessary. Now, you probably noticed in the upper right, but Alan and Scarlet gained 5 points into something. That is their rapport, or their bond. The more and more they battle together, the higher that's going to go, and eventually you'll start getting various bits of dialogue. Much like Fire Emblem, you've got a kind of bond that you can share, and this game takes it a little bit further. Because you can actively have certain characters marry each other, and I already have an idea of who it is I want Alan to marry. In a private playthrough, I'd already done one character in particular that I absolutely love, but I'm gonna probably do another character altogether. But I'm gonna do a different character altogether, and I still know who it is I'm going to be going for. If neither unit is defeated in a battle, the side with the lower percentage HP remaining is the loser. Upon losing a battle, the defeated unit is knocked back and enters a waiting state, rendering it immobile for a short time. You can take advantage of this by having one of your units, if they are the winner, going to the enemy that they knocked, that they put into this state, and attack again. Much like what I'm doing now. Engaging a waiting unit will grant the attacking unit a first strike. A unit executing a first strike will always act first, regardless of initiative. This is the other benefit this is the other thing about putting someone in a wait state. This also affects with their ability to do battle. Remember the counters that I was talking about that are above the units? If that goes down to 0, they can't move, and they have to be forced into going into the wait state in order to regain their AP, their movement. This is a risk, because you're going to be getting first striked a lot unless your characters are high level or with a high defense. But this can be mitigated. You can put characters into the wait state early to regain their mobility points, I'm going to call them. It is entirely possible, but I personally don't recommend it. In some cases, it's probably just easier to do certain strategies. And we're also getting gold for these victories. You notice we are at 40 gold. You're gonna want to keep an eye on your gold, because, as well as a different other type of currency that you'll find out later on, because you can get equipment and items. All that remains now is to reclaim the town. That's where Lex headed, right? I hope he's okay. Now, garrisoning a unit in a town, fort, or other facility will allow that unit to liberate the facility. Okay. So we're gonna do just that. We're gonna garrison the town and capture it. And doing so replenishes your valor points, and boosts the score upon completing the stage. You're going to want to do this a lot, because getting high valor getting high scores also determines something else. Okay, I've still got like 14 and a half minutes. I should be able to do this chapter. I think what I'm going to do, depending on how long these stages are, is I'm going to make each episode a particular battle. And then stop the episode. And maybe even get into the next episode doing something else. Because this game does something that is wildly different from other games like Fire Emblem or even StarCraft or other RTSs. Now, Lex... Units can be ordered to move to any location you specify. We already know this. Select Lex's unit, then move him to the marked location. This is basically just going to teach you how to do movements when there's no enemy on the field. Lex. Oh boy, buddy. You are by yourself. You're not going to be able to do this. Right now I can't do anything with Alan. But let's check out Lex. Now, his initiative is 14, he's got a 15 in evasion, and his guard rate is 31%. He's also got a fairly decent attack and defense stat, physical, with 30 HP. He's a fighter class. Fighter classes have much like Fire Emblem, all classes have a class up, but what makes Lex the kind of unit he is he actually takes less damage as when he's a leader from ranged attacks, or rather ranged assists. And we'll get into assists later. Oh, yeah. Okay. Parting blow. And parting blow. He's been dropped. This is what happens when you lose. You get less experience, and you're going to enter the waiting state. Now we get into mobility. Different units have differing degrees of mobility. The higher their stat is, the quicker they'll move through a battle stage. A unit's combined mobility is determined by the individual mobility stats of its members. In other words, the higher the mobility, the faster you're going to go. Now, we have Joseph. I'm going to put him there, and Joseph is just going to immediately move to Lex. I am your foe this day. Prepare to be struck down. Joseph. Okay. We gotta get into this first. When two allied units are in close proximity, one can swap in for the other. You can press whatever buttons you're using, depending on what platform you're playing this game on, to swap your units around if they're within that blue circle that you see on the screen. This is the range in which you can actually do this. It's not very big. Before a battle, you will see a prediction of how much damage each unit will take. Note how these predictions change when swapping units. The best tip I can give you when it comes to this is if you have a bunch of allied units close proximity and you're facing what might be a challenging opponent, swap your units, find the best outcome for it, and then use that unit. Because more often than not, the unit that has the best outcome starting off, while it won't have the best outcome later, can actually help in clearing enemy units. Now,
これはまずいな。
notice you're getting first struck because because Lex is in waiting mode. But if I switch to Joseph, the enemy dies instead, while Joseph and Chloe, who is his back unit, do not. Most likely, this is going to mean that Chloe herself has an ability that heals. And as it so happens, she does. She has first aid. And it's under the condition that the target's HP is less than 100%. So she's going to heal Joseph. And since he has 2 ability points, he'll be using 2 techniques. He's also got 3 passives. So let's get into it. Slice. One shot. No, he one-shots. Now, 2 of Joseph's passives have... Also, Joseph is level 20 starting off. He is going to be the single most powerful member of your team for a while. Or at least until everyone else gets leveled up to be on par. Let's see, okay. I might not actually be able to do this for very long. Now, we have been given healing tonics, which is your healing item. All units, no matter where they are, they can all use healing items because they all go from the same inventory. However, you can also revive unconscious units.
ちょっとまずいぞ。
I'm gonna recommend it right now. Get a bunch of healing items because otherwise you're gonna have a very hard time dealing with things much later. Now that Lex is with Chloe, their outcome is going to be much better. Let's see. Okay. Sorry. Hodrick. He and I used to stand as the stalwart pillars of Cornea's defense. Many people would probably think that Hodrick turned traitor. Not me. There's a bit more to this than meets the eye. But I'm actually going to end things off here because I know for a fact I'm not going to be able to finish this. So in the next episode, we're actually going to beat Hodrick and his little army and move on to the next battle. In the next battle, it's going to be very interesting because Alan's going to be without someone. No. Well, kind of spoiled it. Oh well. This game's been out for a while. In the meantime, this has been Shadow Zotai, signing off, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.